Flick Chick, and I'm here to talk about Cinderella, the live-action Disney film that came out, like, last year. I saw it a few days ago at the local theater in town with my mom, which kind of is a little tradition thing that we've got going on every other Tuesday kind of thing. And I thought it was okay. I mean, it was kind of basically what I expected it was gonna be. You know, just a live-action reinterpretation of a animated Disney cartoon that's a reinterpretation of a story that's been told numerous times through various other media before. It's just like, I'm just like, did we really need yet another version of the Cinderella story? I mean, every kid who doesn't know the Cinderella story, that's been embedded in our brains since we were kids, and Disney certainly helped us remember it, because it's like, come on, they already made their version. Why do they have to make yet another one? And this time it had to be done by Kenneth Branagh, or however the fuck you pronounce his name, and it's just like, and really, why him? I mean, he's done Shakespeare movies. Why get him in to direct a live-action re-adaptation of a animated cartoon? I mean, there was nothing new that it had to say that was really that different. And oh my god, the characters were just so paper thin. I mean, I know it's supposed to be based on a fairy tale, and fairy tale characters aren't that well developed anyway, but it just felt like, I mean, in the you know, the animated version, you know, it's just like, didn't seem to really matter if their personalities were paper thin or not, because, well, they are just drawings, so they're not real anyway. But when you have, like, real people with whose characters are so boring and paper thin and simple, it's just like, this is not a real person. This is just a caricature of a person, but then why should I get invested if they don't behave like real people? I mean, Cinderella is just like, she was just Cinderella. She was just so nice that she was just unbelievable. I mean, I mean, that's the one thing, a problem I've had with, I mean, granted, Cinderella's not one of my favorite fairy tales, you know. I mean, sure, as a kid, you don't really, you kind of like, oh, whatever, this is just nice, something nice to watch. But when I look back on her as an adult, I'm just like, I don't like her for the same reasons I don't like Snow White. They're just both these uninteresting, flat females who don't do anything to accomplish their dreams. They just deal with whatever shit's going on their way, even if it's really shitty and they could possibly do something about it. They don't ever really, like, complain about their situations, nor do they, like, try to do anything about it. They just deal with it and then hope something good will come along, and that good thing that comes along comes in the form of a man. And I'm like, and it's just like, you don't need a man to be truly happy. But any case, so Cinderella was just so paper thin and just so, like, she just didn't seem invested in anything that happened to her. Not even, like, when her fucking fairy godmother shows up and then her animal friends get turned into humans and then shit happens. It's just like, and of course it was all CGI too, but it was, don't get me wrong, it was good CGI, but it was just like well, she's not really getting that invested, you know, why should I? And the prince was kind of boring too, and you know, stepsisters were, well, the stepsisters, you know, nothing different. And then there was the strange decision to have, like, they had a real cat for Lucifer, but then they had CGI mice, and it's just like, why didn't they just do real mice if they were gonna have a real cat? And the mice don't really talk anyway, but then again, whenever they did, you know, if you listen closely, whenever they, like, made noises, it was all just sped up words, so maybe they are talking, but we just can't hear them, and only Cinderella can hear them. But it's just like, why have them talk, even in chipmunk mode, if we're not gonna even be able to hear what they're saying? It's, But I will give the movie some credit. That does make it, you know, that does make it distinguishable as an adaptation compared to other adaptations. Well, one, I will say that the character of the stepmother, while she may have been just as one-dimensional and in terms of her actions and personality as some of the other characters, there was one scene that did really kind of stick it to my mind. I mean, it also, you know, could have been just her performance, as, you know, the actress's performance, but in any case, there's one scene towards the end where she tells Cinderella her backstory. You know, that she too was a woman who fell in love and had children, and she was very happy, but then in one fell swoop all of that got taken from her, and so she was forced to marry Cinderella's dad because she wanted what was best for her daughters. But now that he's gone, she's left, well, broke and stuck with a girl that's not even hers. And yeah, that still doesn't give her the excuse to treat, you know, I mean, sure, you know, even with a tragic backstory like that, that certainly doesn't give her the excuse to be as cruel and mean as she is. But it was an interesting scene because we never really get the side of the stepmother. She's just always, in most versions, depicted as just some evil woman who comes into the Cinderella's life and fucks it up just so that, and treats her horribly because she envies Cinderella, and that's all you need to know. But here it's like, well, she's actually she has a story. There are reasons why she is what she is. And it's like, well, considering what she's been through, I guess I can't really blame her for being as cruel as she is. But that still doesn't excuse her for being cruel, so it's kind of like, I guess it's just like, I found the villain more interesting than the heroine. And I don't know how I feel about that, because, I mean, I know it's not a bad thing, but it's kind of like, if we're supposed to root for Cinderella and hope that she gets out of her situation, it's just like, And I also like the scenes where of the prince and his father, because, you know, that's another thing that we never really get to see. Even the animated cartoon, you know, the animated Disney film, we never really saw the prince and the father interacting, really. We see the prince, you know, just sort of there, and then he meets Cinderella and they fall in love, and he only has like a few lines, but he's never really seen as a person, just more of a means to an end, so to speak. You know, he's the means through which Cinderella achieves her true happiness. And then we see the king doing his thing, and he's trying to, you know, of course, you know, pair the prince off so he can have grandchildren, but then, you know, in the live-action movie, we see them actually interacting. We see kind of a clash of values, you know, because you know, it's clear that the king wants his son to be happy, but he also wants him to have a marriage that is suitable for a prince, and so he wants him to be married to a princess because that'll be, you know, financially secure, which actually does make a lot of sense. And so it seems, so it kind of like puts the whole like prince falling in love with a commoner kind of in a more bigger perspective. Of course, but of course it's a fairy tale, so it's still, you know, the prince still falls in love with Cinderella, even though she's much lower in status than he is. But then there's the prince's perspective, and he's very romantic. He's not really so much interested in the bigger picture. He's just interested in the present, which kind of makes him seem like seems sort of selfish and inconsiderate of what, you know, of just the kingdom at large, and he's only interested in fulfilling his own selfish desires. But clearly he's not a bad person, and he does ultimately, you know, well, it's just that things sort of work out, and of course he does get together with Cinderella because, of course, it's a fairy tale, so, you know, of course it's gonna end that way. And then, and the effects and the visually, the film was very impressive. I mean, yeah, it was all in CGI, but it really did make a great deal of effort to almost kind of look like what the animated film would have looked like in real life. I mean, oh my god, this one scene where Cinderella's, you know, looking up the stairs towards the attic, I mean, it looked exactly like the same shot in, like, it looked exactly like the way it looked in the animated film, where stepmother's going up the stairs towards Cinderella's room, and, you know, it was really good, and, you know, the palace was spectacular, and yeah, the transformation sequences were really good too. I mean, I have to admit, when she does get into her dress, it kind of made me think of, like, I don't know, like Sailor Moon or something. But it was, you know, it was not a bad film. I mean, you know, it was a reinterpretation of a fairy tale, and it was clearly meant for younger children, so I guess I can't really be too hard on it. But I will say that I'm not sure if this film really deserved to be made, even if it did offer some things in it that were kind of, like, some distinct elements, like, you know, the stepmother and the interactions between the prince and his father, and yeah, visually it was very impressive. It really just seemed like it was just riding on the bandwagon of Maleficent, which, what I've heard, is pretty darn good, because it tells the story of Sleeping Beauty from the villain's perspective, which makes it kind of different, which makes it very different and possibly interesting. But with Cinderella, it just wasn't doing anything different. It just was telling the same story that we've heard many times before, and so it's kind of like, you know, what more could it offer? But it did offer some new things, like, you know, it gave us a new angle on the stepmother, and it showed us, you know, the relationship between the prince and his father, and it was visually very impressive. So I guess I'm gonna give this film kind of a, like, about maybe a C+, you know? I mean, it wasn't I don't think it really needed to be made, and I didn't really like the film, but it was not a bad movie, but it wasn't terrible either. It did offer some new things, and it was visually impressive, but that's about it. Well, I'm Flick Chick, and I'll see you next time.